With the rules out of the way and the artists in charge, what happens now? That's coming up here on the Stream Girls.
Check the Stream Girls. They got a lot to say. The Stream Girls. From Los Angeles to the Monterey Bay. Started streaming before the boys knew what was up. California dreaming, here to light the world up. If you know, you know. If you don't, you in your own way. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. If you don't, you in your own way.
That song makes me so happy every time I hear it.
Me too, every time.
I'm Sandy Shore.
I am Donna K. Phillips.
You know, the industry that controlled what was recorded, who recorded it, and who played it, and it began collapsing in the early 2000s with the digital rupture. We were there, so we know.
Yeah.
Platforms like MySpace opened the door for independence. Artists were able to release their own music outside of a label. They were able to get discovered on what was the first social media platform with digital music delivery. It was very exciting back then.
Yeah.
And by the mid-2000s, radio stations that used to be worth millions of dollars in cities all over America began to see a steady drop in ad sales with the rise of satellite radio and MP3 players like the iPod. It began impacting listenership. And then this accumulated in major industry giants recording massive multi-billion-dollar losses and marking a definitive end to radio's era of peak financial value. Today's giants like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the podcasting, all that is taking over terrestrial radio's sales, and they're continuing to see the decline, prompting an ongoing transition into digital and multi-platform revenue streams. And that leads us to today and why we're discussing independence around the Independence Day, because it's your responsibility as an independent artist to make sure that you understand what your choices are and to make judicious decisions. We like the idea and we support independent artists, but we do believe in quality, and we feel like music, like cream, the best will always rise to the top.
Yeah, it does. It finds its way, doesn't it?
It finds its way, and it can't just be, we're in, we got all the indie stuff going on, so we'll put out an 8-minute song, in some genres, perhaps, and maybe if you're doing art rock. I mean, I'm not saying that is something you should never do, but certainly not if you want to have a commercial impact, right?
Right, exactly. And that's where producers come in. I mean, and like we said before in some of the previous podcasts, there was a transition time, right, Sandy, where independents didn't have access to these producers that they do now. They didn't have access to radio promoters that they do now. No. And it was a lot harder road to climb. You could make a CD, you could try your best, but to get it to master at that level that radio would play it, that was really hard. And it cost a lot of money, and it was cost prohibitive.
Yeah, because the time period we're talking about, not that long ago, right? 20 years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of amazing technology in our home studios yet. And I'm seeing things every day online where producers are really famous producers who have won Grammys are saying that they can record everything out of their house now. And so can their artist clients. And it's just literally thousands of dollars a day less. That didn't exist 20 years ago. Like you're saying, It wasn't easy. And also a lot of the people in the industry that were feeling the aftermath of the crumble that I just laid out for you there historically.
Yeah.
They were not so inclined to embrace the new independence.
No. And also some of those DJs that found themselves without a job didn't want to leave radio programming. they found a way to start their own stations on a platform like called Live 365, which we're affiliated with our stream host SoundStack. They are the ones who started Live 365. And that gave independence to programmers. They didn't have to work for big corporations anymore. They could go out and be their own program director as a DJ, right? So there was that Wild West happening. And then there were streaming platforms like Music Match. Oh, Music Match. Remember? They came along back in the day when the Gavin convention was ending and Radio and Records had a few more conventions left in them. And I remember a booth set up, and it was very new for the FM stations to wander by that booth and say, what is Music Match? What exactly is that? Because we didn't have Pandora yet. We didn't have iTunes yet.
Yeah,
Like
if they were dating, they would say, I kind of like you, but I'm not sure about you right now.
Exactly.
You might threaten me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he had to have a booth there. And I'll tell one funny story. When we got to know the gentleman that was doing Music Match, and he explained to us what it was basically a bunch of channels. He was trying to do what SiriusXM did eventually, but he was doing it on a digital platform, and they were bought out by Yahoo. So he did well for himself. But when we sat down with us and said, well, since you guys program smooth jazz, can you take over the programming for the smooth jazz channel on Music Match? And what was it, that famous line that you and Scott O'Brien and myself sat in just amazement that he said to us about the indies that we were starting to let into, the landscape?
And before I answer that, let's think about all of those amazing former major label artists that were now independent. That were now lumped in with the indies, right?
Yeah.
He looked at us. We were in his office actually down in San Diego area, remember?
Yep.
And he looked at us and said, why would you allow independent artists' music to pollute your stream? Why would you allow for that? And Ed, I don't want you to be programming any independent artists for the smooth jazz, channel that you're doing for us, or whatever they called it. I don't know if it was a channel or a station. I'm not exactly sure, but they were ahead of their time. So we'll give them some props for that. They were a little snobby about what we were encouraging. And I think the whole point for me anyway on this particular chat today is about we are all for independence. We are independent. The labels we work with are independent for the most part, but there has to be quality control. And recording artists who are independent, that is your job, as well as making great songs, writing the songs, performing the songs. You have to be responsible for what you deliver. And we don't think that it's a bad idea to find a producer if that's not in your wheelhouse to do it yourself. If that's not your thing, and maybe you can't get out of your own way, it happens. But we don't really like what we hear when artists come to us and say, the promoter told me to get rid of the vocals, or the promoter told me to get rid of the drums, or the promoter doesn't like the beats, or the promoter. And then really what they're doing is they're guessing what radio will say.
Yeah.
That's all they're guessing. They don't care what the streaming fans are going to say.
No, I mean, what we're here to do today is to arm the independents with knowledge, because you are your own record label, which allows you to reap all of the benefits. And I know, there's a lot of downside, or at least an opinion of a downside of trying to make money on your music. It's hard to find the way to make money on your music when it's changing constantly, right?
Yeah.
We used to hold music in our hands with vinyl and cassettes and CDs, and that was the product that was sold, right? And now it's per song. Now it's your actual voice. It's your actual musicianship in the form of an MP3
That
streaming over and over.
Exactly.
It's
you don't even see those MP3s anymore. Just recently, like literally weeks, months ago, people were consuming MP3s, and now that's not even a thing anymore. And Donna, you're 100% right, because when I say be judicious as a business owner, I hope that you will understand that what's success in the music business is that connection with listeners. The minute you're making music that connects with people, that is success, because that translates to those who consume your music ultimately support your career. They're the ones that share the music with their friends and tell them to stream you and tell them to follow you. And then they go to your concerts, and then
Right.
they support your, your 365, whatever else you've got going, whether that's merchandise or perhaps you are doing some sort of annual festival or a tour somewhere. These are the people that are going to support you. And it never, ever happens unless there's a connection to the music.
Right. And I'm going to say one more thing, and it's not easy to hear, but as an artist myself, I found this out. When I made music back in the 90s, it was radio who determined if it was good enough to go to the audience. Radio was, in a way, the quality control, right? The program directors, right?
One of them, yeah.
And just because you make music today and we have more resources to have studios in our homes or to know friends who can produce us, other artists who've had success that may offer to be our producer, or we can pay them to be our producer. With all of that we have access to now, it still boils down to the same thing. The audience will decide if they connect with you or not. Mm-hmm. And what I also put out there right now is you can make what you feel and your gut is going to connect, and it may not. But that's what marketing is about. So even if you put it out there to the audience, to the larger listening audience that you can get feedback from through numbers, which streaming does provide, whereas FM doesn't really provide that anymore. So you're kind of shooting in the dark with FM a little bit. If you go the FM route, if you go the closed, we called it the closed loop last time, right? Then you're relying on a program director, a radio promoter who is not a musician. Probably never been a musician, never written a song, never paid to have a song produced, never put a song out there. Doesn't have your experience, right?
Some have musical backgrounds, so I'll put that on the record. But the majority don't. You're correct.
Some have perfect pitch, but it doesn't mean that they've ever made a song and know what it's like to be in the position of an artist, right? So it's the same thing with a consultant. Consultants come in from a numbers standpoint. They don't come in because they sat in an inspiring place and made a song, right? It's very hard to be an artist and in your gut feel like you've poured yourself into a song and put it out there. And I think this feeling of going to these professionals from the past that we grew up around, that, we knocked on those doors, we couldn't get in, and now we can get in. So if they tell us to take the flute out of our song or to take the vocal out of our song, we're damn well going to do it because we want to have that success, right? We poured our heart into this. But what you have to understand is that person telling you that is not one of you. He is not a musician. So if you follow that lead to go get to those radio stations, the reason he's telling you that is to make his job easier for what he thinks. This, again, past notions, that he will get you on more radio stations if you will just make these changes to your song, right? That's a risk. That's living in a tiny bubble with a very few people that you're influencing. And we're going to get into this. What is a chart? Mm-hmm. What is a chart about? What is chart success about? How many people are you truly influencing on certain charts versus others?
Well, you're right. I mean, that is that's the track they're running on.
Right.
Keeping it real. Their job is to run a song down the radio track, and that song, depending on where it gets added, what stations play it, how many times they play it in a week, and how far they can move that needle along, right? Get that song up the chart. So I guess, before you get into the chart section here, it's really important that since you are, I assume, if you're listening to our podcast right now, that you are, or either you are one or you're working with independent artists. And it's extraordinarily important right now in the time we're living in to educate yourself so that you understand the differences between the offerings to independent artists and how to decide what will actually make a difference. Would it be great to go hire a mega producer to deliver the sheen, the shine, and the production aesthetics that we've seen radio respond to? Yeah, sure. But and this is why I'm like at the same time scratching my head about AI, because you could also run a song through Suno, and that thing is going to tell you what a perfect 3.5 minute song sounds like. That's just so no, the producer typically isn't using AI. They have the experience of years, and hits and whatever. But they're also very expensive. And if that's not in your budget, then you need to make a judicious decision on that. And, perhaps if you're in it this far, you already have a feel for what radio and consumers like. These days, it's not just about what radio likes. It's not like what Donna was saying back in the 90s. If she was going to get anywhere, she had to have these stations at her music. And if you remember episode 1 of the Stream Girls, I was in that position, and we called artists like Donna a folder folk, because she didn't come in with the expense of the label product. She came in a folder, and her stuff looked really good. That's how I met Donna. Her stuff looked really good. I mean, her cover looked like it was from Warner Brothers, and that's what impressed me. The cover, and I mean no offense, because Donna didn't have a $100,000 budget. The cover sounded better than the record.
Yeah, the mix was bad. I mean, the production level was bad, and it was the best I could do, right?
And it wasn't indicative of Donna's talent, because, I mean, first of all, she designed the cover, so she gets huge awards for that. But she also is a very, very talented songwriter and a great vocalist, and wrote some of my favorite songs, and I played them on that station. But my point is, when you deliver, your product, you have to understand that everything matters. And that is where you are right now. You're in the ocean. You're not at the beach anymore. You're not on the shore. You're literally out at sea. And you're competing with artists who, A, can afford producers, B, know how to work the equipment, C, maybe dabbling in AI. I don't know. But it's your job to understand, right? And that's where Donna is going to help navigate the waters a little bit here on the charts, because, we get a lot of phone calls from artists wanting to understand not just our charts. They want to understand, what are the charts? What are the differences? Is it apples to apples? And Donna, I'm noticing you're having a little sip of something. Something
my little
divine.
Belgian ale, yeah. Now I'm doing what the Irish do not like. I'm using a Leffe glass, and I could lie and say that this is Leffe beer, which is a nice Trappist ale, but it's not. This is a shout out to my friends in Canada, in Quebec, for La Fin du Monde, and it is an excellent, excellent Belgian ale, and I highly recommend it. But anyway,
not sponsoring the
no, not sponsoring. Getting paid nothing for that,
but are welcome to.
Yeah, because it's nighttime here on the Monterey Bay, and I just want to tell y'all that we had the coldest July 4th ever here. That's why I'm in long sleeves, because one of the lesser known things about Monterey Bay and San Francisco is that it is truly the coldest winter you will ever spend. Like Mark Twain said, is a summer in Monterey or San Francisco. It is so cold for July 4th while you guys are just stroking out on the heat. No, we're dying of cold over here.
As our friend Dennis Murphy says, there's nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
We don't want you to know that it's 65.
No, but my point...
We're crowded enough.
Exactly. My point was that it was hard, as an artist, to have the radio programmers maybe decide, I like the songs, but the production level is not there, right? And it didn't get picked up. And maybe you played it because you were nice to us.
Well, they were really good songs, and some of them, I really, I loved. My point in bringing that up was because you were in this position, and if you were coming out today with that music, it would be night and day. In fact, we've run a couple of Donna's songs through Suno.
Yeah.
And just to see if there's some new arrangements, and then, we'll, of course, take it and bring it back to life through authentic instrumentation.
Yeah, but I
it's
think
kind of fun to get new arrangement ideas. A lot of artists are doing that. I'm so sorry. I'm looking forward to a show where we cover AI in the near future.
For sure. We're getting into that. Yeah, we've had some artists ask about that. We're definitely getting into that because that's super exciting. It's a great tool. But if I had had what we had now, if I had had social media where I could connect with and let people know who I was as an artist or why I did what I did, right? I would have been thrilled. I can't believe, and I guess I understand why some artists are reluctant to do social media. Maybe we grew up in a time where we were to be seen and not heard, or we weren't to make a big deal out of ourselves, right? Maybe that's how we were trained socially. But what the world is about now, and I just want to make a point that we started smoothjazz.com at a time when the record labels were bemoaning losing the sales that you talked about earlier because the way music was delivered from vinyl to cassette tape to a plastic disc to a download was all changing. It was always about the music delivery and how they were missing out on the sales. The sales were going down. They were going down. And I feel like what came in its place, I would have cherished as an artist. And that's what I feel like we do, Sandy, every day is we try to get the artist to really see how lucky they are to live in this time. Because what we've seen develop in the last 26 years is a way to be accountable, a way to guide yourself with numbers on why people, stream your music. I mean, Nielsen and Arbitron were a rating system, yeah. But you still, back in that day, had to hope that a program director would add your music, and then another one, and then another one. And then maybe you would become a hit maker, right?
Well,
it was up to those people.
That's very true.
To connect with the audience. Now you can
true.
connect with the audience. So what we're trying to say is you have power. Yes, it's a responsibility as an indie artist, but now you're just being offered a flood of ways to get to the audience. And we want to make it easy for you to understand. If you only have so much budget, where you might want to see faster results, even if they don't like your music, even if that's one of the things, it doesn't do well, right? But what we don't want is for you to think you didn't do well because you didn't take that vocal out because the radio promoter asked you to. We don't want you to think that that's the reason you didn't do well.
We're actually working with a client right now at smoothjazz.com who I just thought was a guitarist, and because that's how it was delivered to me, and a good guitarist, really good guitarist, and soulful guitarist. And I came to find out when he signed on to work with us, in addition to his promoter, he said, Sandy, this song's actually a vocal. This is not the song. They actually told me to remove my vocal from my vocal. And so this is the one we took out, but it's not the song. Can I send you the song before you guys start your campaign? He sent me the song and I literally got goosebumps. It's such a beautiful vocalist, such a talent. And the guitar was gorgeous, just like it was in the instrumental version of the vocal.
Man.
But the vocal was outrageous. And so guess what? We took that vocal out for him. We also sent out the instrumental to radio just in case they freaked out because it's a vocal, which they didn't because they don't. But but the most amazing thing happened. The vocal was the one that went up the charts higher than the instrumental. And also, if you look at this gentleman's streaming, I convinced him to put the vocal out on streaming, and the vocal is the one with the thousands of streams, while the instrumental didn't even get over 1,000 streams on Spotify. So this is why you have to make the decision for yourself. This isn't, you have to be judicious. You have to be smart. You have to listen to your gut. And yes, talk to your friends, talk to a producer if you have access, but be sure that you do. It's really important that you actually sound this out. And Donna, I was going to say, as far as the CDs go, because we do hear that, I want to make CDs because I want to make money. Well, The good news is if you're in smooth jazz, you'll find a gazillion of people apparently are buying CDs still.
Yeah, I guess so.
As long as you're playing live. As long as you're playing live, you have an audience. I'm not sure that's such a good thing for the genre, that our audience is of the age that still buys CDs. Yeah. And I don't mean the 13-year-olds that find them fun right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're buying CDs because the folks don't want to get rid of their CD player. And I'm happy. We're happy for you. If you make some money from it, awesome. But the majority of the industry, isn't putting their music out on CDs, more vinyl at this point.
Yeah, and we see that. But I think what you said, I'm going to push back a little bit on what you said, because yes, ask for feedback. Okay, fine. But what's going on out there, and we know this to be true because you're talking to a lot of these folks who are telling you the information that they're getting from their friends and fellow artists is go with the old school, get in the closed loop system. Because what they're being told in a mighty, mighty way is that getting on the Billboard chart is a big tick mark in their success as an artist, or the song's success as a song, right?
Right.
Getting on Serious Watercolors is the success. Those are the two pinnacles right there.
If it were me, I would take Watercolors over Billboard in a New York minute, because Watercolors, there's revenue return there, and I get that. But the Billboard chart thing is, I don't get that. That is a feather in a cap, and you can share it on Facebook. That's great. And you're going to make all the other artists, envious. But beyond that, it doesn't sell a concert ticket. The promoters, when I say promoters, I don't mean radio. I mean the talent buyers and the event promoters do not pay to get behind the Billboard paywall to see where you are on the Billboard Smooth Jazz chart, which is ranked underneath ringtones, because they have 300 charts over on Billboard. And they're not looking at the smooth jazz chart. Believe me, they're not. So I don't know why you care. I asked one gentleman in a call once, and I know all that. He said, I know all that. But he said, I want to be like back in the day. I want to have, maybe I'm sentimental, he said.
Yeah, I remember
And I'm
that.
like, I'm sentimental too. It doesn't mean I'm going to bring my wall phone back.
No.
You know what I remember when I was like 8, that there was a phone on the wall, and it had a cord a mile long, and my mom would stand there, and she would, every time she was on the phone, I'd hear her say, oh, kid, I know, kid. Everyone loved my mom, and I used to go kind of cozy up to her, and we'd stand by the wall together on the phone. I have fond memories of that. But I have and I wish it would bring my mom back. But you know what? It's not. And I have no interest in putting a phone on the wall, because I can walk around anywhere, any place, and make a call. So I don't follow that either. Just being super honest with y'all. Be nostalgic, be sentimental. But
let's explain why. Can we explain
real.
why? Let's be real. But this is because we have to hear it. Y'all are calling us. We have to hear it constantly. And this is the time to break it down. Okay? So can I break it down?
Break it down. Let's talk about
Okay,
those
I'm breaking it
charts.
down, baby.
Apples to apples, apples to oranges.
I showed my silly little paper signs that I made last time.
For those playing the home game.
Yeah, but we're not that sophisticated yet, where we're switching out graphics and doing all that.
Because we're a podcast and it's supposed to be audio. Now, we're complying and putting video out here, but we hope most of you are just listening.
Boy, you're missing the leffa beer, so I'm sorry for that. Anyway,
I have the perfect face for radio.
Okay, so here, but my hair needs video. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's true.
That's Heidi's studio in Carmel. Not another plug.
Not a sponsor.
No, so anyway, okay, so here's how it breaks down, you guys. Ready? Okay, this is for people, listeners of all types, not just artists. This is kind of a cool way it breaks down. This is where we are. We have about 250 radio stations on our radio station guide on Smooth Jazz Global, okay? Because we want to represent all of the folks playing smooth jazz music in the world, wherever they are. We just had a guy come on from Macedonia. That was really cool. Mm-hmm. And he does a great job. He is a really good DJ, program director, and he's got a lot of really great artist IDs. Kim Scott's been on there. Chris Standring.
He's very professional.
So he's pro, dude. I mean, I was really impressed.
That matters to us.
Shout
Quality
out
matters.
to the station in Macedonia. They're on our contact list, by the way. If you sign up for our radio delivery service, you will get that station and more. So 250 stations on the guide. If you go to smoothjazz.com and go to our radio station guide, it's under the music drop down. You can see all of the stations. You can click on their logos and play their streams. Okay, so that we're representing the world there for smooth jazz. Now, out of those, we have 210-ish that come and go. Radio programmers for stations. It may be 2 per station. It may be 1 for a few different stations.
You mean one programmer for 2 stations?
You may have a couple of programmers from a station. So like Lynette
I
and
got you.
Trinity
Oh,
and
right, got you.
Or Talaya might be on the list for watercolors, you know. So then we also have music supervisors, and these are the folks that pick the music for TV and for movies.
I
right?
think this is really exciting that we've added music supervisors to our list. We have quite a few actually at this point that we'll send music out to on your behalf, and these are the people that decide for television shows, series, and movies. So
and our green stream is so beautifully built that it's very easy to discover new music. So.
Yep.
They're receiving that. They're receiving the green stream with your write-up and your download and all of that. Now, okay, so 250 in the world, about 210 that we email to. So we're sending your music to about 210 of these programmers and music supervisors. Now, why don't we have 209 or 250 even on the chart? This is why. And this is super important because there are a lot of charts out there, guys. There's a lot of charts. The Smooth Jazz Global chart, we have 4 of them, okay? But the airplay chart has 37 at this point. I just dumped somebody. We had 38. And I dumped them because they weren't playing any new smooth jazz, even though they told me that they were going to, and they're not. So
they weren't helping anybody.
They weren't helping anybody, so we're not going to monitor them. Because we want you guys to have the most spins possible allocated to the chart. Okay, that's why we do what we do. Otherwise, why even have a chart? This is why we're so perplexed about Billboard because of this. So 37 on the chart. The reason they are on the Smooth Jazz Global chart, the reason they qualify is that they dedicate 25% or more of their playlists to new releases. So they help with most added, they help with spin crease, they add music, and they consider new music. And they actually, and you'll see this in the contact list that we provide, they consider doing interviews with you. They consider content with new artists. Back in the day, major radio stations would never do that for indie artists. So the fact that we have a very active group of radio stations that love new music, that's why our chart, we feel, is important to the genre. That's the airplay chart.
We vet these stations. We ask questions. We want to understand how big their audience is. We want to know how professional they are, because I come from a time where to be a reporting station on Radio and Records or Gavin, it was literally a badge of honor. You had to work to get that. You had to work. You had to maintain your ratings. Everything had to be, extraordinary for you to get invited to be a reporting station. So we take, and your promoters know that, by the way. Everyone that's in this industry has been around long enough to remember, what I know to be true. So, kick the tires a little bit, ask the questions. So, 100%, Donna, that not all charts are equal. And in the case of this Billboard Smooth Jazz thing, with only 13 or 15 stations, how many ever there are, sometimes less is not more. And in this case, that would be true.
Well, this is a strange situation, okay? Because we don't have the FM major market stations anymore. That's what the Billboard chart and the Radio and Records chart and the Gavin chart all represented. We're all of the major markets and maybe medium-sized markets. I don't know. You know that, Sandy. But here's what we're down to, guys. 2 satellite cable channels. So we have a satellite channel, watercolors. That's 1 or 2 people making the decision on what to play there, right? So you're trying to influence the people who make the music decisions for that satellite channel, right? 1 cable channel. That's 1 programmer. So that's 2 so far. Then we have 3 small market FMs, WSBZ, KOAZ, I believe, and one other one. Back in the day, those would have been considered pretty small markets, but those are pretty big nowadays.
It's the top of the food chain and
top of the food chain now.
Terrestrial radio.
So we're up to 5 programmers that you need to influence to get on the Billboard chart, okay? 7 college radio stations. Now, back in my day, I don't remember college radio being part of a chart. Do you, Sandy?
No, not necessarily. I mean, unless they had their own chart.
Right. So we think these guys are great. They do a great job programming. I've listened to some of their shows, and they're doing excellent work. They might be volunteers. I don't know if they get paid. I don't know what the situation is anymore, but they are college radio. So that means they have a reach in their market.
And it means
Yep.
they're transient because those students aren't going to stay there forever.
No, and also the programmers and the DJs don't stay there forever. They usually do it.
Some PDs will stay a while.
Some will.
Because
Yeah.
that's their job.
Yeah.
But for sure, the music directors and the on-air talent, they're training. They're in college.
Right.
They're going to be there maybe 4 years. You know what I mean?
Right, and like I said, I will put this up after on the Stream Girls Facebook page or Instagram or whatever. I will put this up so we can see the breakdown, and you guys can pass it around so you guys will know what we're dealing with here. But so 2 satellite cable, 3 small market, 7 college radio programmers. Now the 5 left are programmed by the Smooth Jazz Network. That is one programmer. That is one man. So you can't really say you're influencing 5 different programmers, right? To us, the health of a chart, it's not just to us. It's actually to all major charts, right? The health of a chart is based on how many different types of programmers in different parts of the world or the country and the influence they have that you can affect to play your music, right? That you can they will influence for you if you can influence them to add your music. On Billboard, Smooth Jazz, and it's not the top 100, remember, it's Billboard Smooth Jazz, you only have to influence 11 people. So when you put that number 1 Billboard placard up, that means you got 11 people to add your music out of 250 stations around the world. That's what it means.
And as Donna just exposed here in the hard-hitting Stream Girls podcast, that we know that one person is in charge of 40+% of the chart. Where I come from, that's considered unfair advantage.
Yeah,
And the only way you're going to get that support, we know, is to market.
yes. So let's just break that down. The network programming came from the original consultant of the format that took the playlist across the country down to a few hundred songs. That is the same entity, right? That's the same person making that decision to control the format in his view. That's a way to do it, but that's not our view. Our view is to be more expansive and put it out to the audience in the world, right? Not to narrow it down. The other thing is there's a syndicated programmer. So he's doing syndicated programming, right? He's doing certain shows that are being put onto stations. That is one person deciding the fate or the programming list of maybe 30 stations, right? So as an independent, that sounds good. If I only have so much budget to spend and one guy can get me on 30 stations, right? And then there's, meanwhile, another network that has something called multicasting. That's really cloning. That's like taking a few different streams and giving them a lot of different names. And
It's a
making
bit
them look,
AI-ish, really.
it's kind of AI-ish, yeah.
But Donna, just to push back on that one or to ask a question, when you say the network is responsible for 30 stations, why are only 5 on the Smooth Jazz chart then?
That Billboard's only allowing 5 to be reporting. So iHeart is one, the Smooth Jazz Network station is another, and there are 3 others that are pretty much full-time. I've gone to their websites and you can see it's full-time Smooth Jazz Network. So in a way,
Network
it's
content. Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
those other 3 are clones of the Smooth Jazz Network.
Okay,
They're
got
they're
it.
just all the same programming from the same person, right?
Thanks for answering that.
Yeah, but in the Florida Smooth Jazz Network, which is the other one, there are about 40 stations, right? And we've had artists come to us, right, Sandy, that have said, "Oh, but I paid to do an ad campaign on the Smooth Jazz Network, and I get played on 40 stations." But what you're doing is you're influencing one person who controls all 40, and there's a reason why those stations don't get added in bulk to charts. Because that one person could add or drop you and sway the entire chart. Now, I noticed...
We mentioned this in the last show, that when you get added, it's great. But when you get dropped, it's brutal.
And the Radio Wave Groove Jazz chart, I just checked in the other day, and I can't believe they've added so many of that network stations, more than I've ever seen. And I've talked to the folks over there back in the day when we were building our automated chart, our monitor chart. And he and we both talked about how we're monitoring. And he said he would never really want to have one network like that represented too heavily on his chart for that very reason. He agreed with us, right? Well, there's been some new influence over at that chart. I noticed there's a lot of that network on that Groove Judge chart now. So that one person can have a lot of sway as well. So as an indie, just realize when you see a network dominating a chart, it's not what it was back in the day. You're not gaining 70 programmers from major markets to like your music. That's not what Billboard means anymore for smooth jazz. It just means you got 7 college stations, one guy with 5 stations on a network, and 2 channels and 3 small market stations to play you.
And let me say this, when we give this kind of influence, and when I say we're all complicit to some degree, because we're all on some level accepting it. Obviously, we're not totally comfortable with it, which is why we have lots to say. But we are allowing for this. So when that happens, what we're doing is we're enabling a kind of a rigged system, and we're also allowing people to make money on a situation, which places them in the position of being a gatekeeper, where they're obviously very comfortable being, because that's where they come from. So I wanted to just throw that out there as well. And then also I want to say, if you have any proof that getting a leg up on this small chart is, if you can actually prove that it has to do with your success as far as, besides using the title, little bling, really it's bling. But if you think it's affecting your bookings and it's increasing your revenue, we understand feathers and caps, we all like that. We all like stars. We all like epaulets, but if it's really turning up the volume in your bank account and it's really getting your bookings going, and you can prove that, I'd love to talk to you, because I happen to know these promoters. And when I say promoters, I don't mean radio. I mean talent buyers and event producers. Yeah. They're looking at Spotify and they're looking at your social media, and that is how they're booking, because they are running a business. And in order to pay you to come perform, you have to make more money than they pay you. You have to earn them some money.
Yeah.
Because they're taking all the risk to get you there. So if you feel like that these Spotify numbers, are less impactful on your performance career and your revenue, let me know. I'd love to have a chat. If you're having a different experience than what I'm seeing, and people I'm talking to that are producing these festivals and booking these series and booking these venues, let me know. Yeah,
and I'm gonna do a kapow right now. Okay, this is called a kapow. It's gonna be a thing that we do.
Then we're gonna level up.
Okay. The kapow is this: you want to put down $2,500, $3,000, $5,000 on a producer, your choice. Because the radio promoter said you need to go do that. Okay, 5,000. Let's say you put 5,000 in. Let's say you put in 2,400 for a radio promoter. Now you're up to 7,500-ish, right? For 6 weeks, something like that. We're going to take a stab. And we all know where we're going. We're trying to get that Billboard bling, and we're trying to get those sound exchange dollars on watercolors, because those college stations are not paying that sound exchange money, and neither are the FMs, right? It's all coming from one place. So let's say you do it. And Sandy and I have run the numbers. So you're an indie artist. Let's say you have 10 grand, right? And I'm going to put it towards the producer, the promoter, and put a little bit with the network. And I'll put a little bit on this network. And I'm going for that watercolors. There is a chance that you could get picked up. And you might make more than that 10 grand back. There is a chance. That is a financial decision, isn't it, Sandy?
It is.
But it's a shot.
We know people that do it. It
happens. But here's the kapow. We have artists you've never heard of that are coming to us from all over the world, and they don't care about any of that. And they don't spend that kind of money. And they are finding ways to make that money on streaming.
They are.
But those folks you just paid will tell you otherwise. And those artists that live in that closed loop system, they will tell you otherwise. So just be aware that they want you to stay in that closed loop system. But we've got folks out here making good money and not paying any of that.
And people who tell you, or maybe it's you that don't think streaming pays, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. Period.
That's what it comes down to.
And honestly, that's the truth, because I've got artists that walk away with several $1,000s a month from very small campaigns with us. I've got artists that are making $8,000 off of a single that promoters declined.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of stories like this. They started, few and far between, and now we hear them every single month. So Donna's 100% right, and that was a good kapow. And now we're gonna move on to our level up part of the show, where we decode and debunk. Yep. And this, I promised in the last Stream Girls episode, we would take on vocals. We mentioned it a little bit a few minutes ago, and here's what we hear all the time: vocals don't matter in smooth jazz. True, not true, definitely not true. And the reason you hear that, possibly from the radio promoters, is because they do have an easier time taking an instrumental to an predominantly instrumental format. Of course they do, because really four of these vocals play per hour on most smooth jazz stations, leaving approximately 10 songs that are instrumental. So their odds are greater that an instrumental will be added than a vocal. However, we're in a famine right now of vocals, an absolute famine. I'm a programmer. I program smoothjazz.com, the radio stream. I also program Smooth Lounge. And there's no vocals for smooth jazz at the moment. I can't just, ask Mesa to put out a song every month, or Lindsay Webster. I mean, she has a great new album out now. And to be honest, I'm playing 2 or 3 tunes from that album because there are no vocals right now. So, because you've got 3 or 4 or 5 promoters out there repeating this old notion over and over again. But in radio, this old notion that vocals go back to the beginning. So this is where I'm completely perplexed, because vocals, what we call them in smooth jazz radio, we call them anchors. We build around them. They support the instrumentals, and they break up the similarity of the instrumentals. And I say we, I mean smooth jazz genre. Back in the day, we launched Sade. We launched Anita Baker. And just recently on smoothjazz.com, we singly launched Adele.
Mm-hmm. We did.
Because Columbia came to us. They didn't know what to do with Adele in America. Mm-hmm. And I of course, I mean, like everyone else in the world, fell in love with her, and we took one of the songs out. It was a bit
Chasing
of a stretch,
Pavements.
but
Chasing
we took
Pavements.
it out. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can't say that vocals don't work in the genre. Just believe me when I tell you we need more. They're necessary. You need to use your common sense. If you're a vocalist and somebody in the industry says to you to remove the vocal from your vocal, just say no thanks. And
or come to us and
call us. Yeah.
Yeah, like run a campaign where you send out the vocal to the streamers, the playlist curators, the new influencers, and we'll send it out to Nostalgia Radio as well. And we'll see how you do.
Yeah.
But that's what marketing is about. And that's what this whole episode was about, is to say you have to get smart and you have to start weighing your options on where to spend your money. Because if your true goal is to see if the audience connects with your music, there's no better way than social media and streaming than to see that direct effect. You don't have to go through all the gates. If you want the bling, go through the gates. You got 11 people. Yay, 11 people. You got 11 people for that number one. Number one equals 11. That's it.
And that's it. And I wasn't trying to play you off. You know how I am. You've gotten very used to...
Cheers, everyone.
You've gotten used
to...
Go
have a fun.
Thanks for listening to the Stream Girls, and we'll be back because we do have a lot to say, a lot of ground to cover here. We appreciate you listening.
All right.
Please don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and everywhere you pod.
Yes, please do.
Check the Stream Girls, they got a lot to say. The Stream Girls from Los Angeles